Hello and welcome back, and that's right, it's time for Data News of the Week, the video where we go through all the little news stories that we couldn't put into any other videos that involve data, and we put it all into one big info dump right now. Now, unlike a lot of Data News of the Week videos where I talk a lot about new products, it's not really that much to talk about. I already touched on a bunch of new Synology stuff, and short of them finally releasing the HD 6500, finally, which is not exactly a mainstream system, there's not actually been that many new releases this week. However, there have been a whole bunch of online stories and online big data companies, all with their own 2 pence getting thrown around in the news. So let's crack on with it straight away. I'm sure a number of you have heard about this more than the last week or so. This has actually been bouncing around for a little while now. It's to do with an architect and one of the administrators at Google, a Google engineer, Blake Limone. I apologize if I am pronouncing that wrong. And him basically highlighting that he believed an AI at Google was sentient. That's right, not just prescriptive words, not just reading off an algorithm, but very much answering questions with consciousness. Now, of course, Google themselves not exactly strangers to keeping things secret as we've gone through the stories. The reason we brought it up in this Data News of the Week, even though we missed it in the previous one, was largely because much like Tinet Gebru, who was also fired for criticism of Google's AI, which sounds like one of the main reasons she was hired, they've given him the bullet. He's been given the bullet, fired because of breach of confidentiality policies. Now, what's really intriguing about this is this has been in the news in multiple sources, but not a lot of sources are actually highlighting the conversation that he had, the whole interview in detail that he published, the thing that got him fired, and this in the news. And when you read through the entire conversation between him and the AI, Lambda or LAMDA, it really is quite creepy. Do go through it, and again, it's all of these links are going to be linked, listed in the description below. But I do recommend you check it out, because even if he's given the bullet for this, I don't think this completely undermines the subject of is it actually conscious? Because what is consciousness? And again, just giving it a read, grab yourself a copy and read through the conversation, everything from storytelling to feelings. It's quite a deep little note there, and definitely something that will leave you a little bit weirded out. Next up, it feels like not a week goes by where we don't discuss the impact of data and the cloud for the world during the Russia and Ukraine conflict. And right now there's a couple of little blibs and blobs that have floated to the surface more than any other. The first one is Amazon kind of aiding Ukraine with the storage of 10 petabytes of data from their country. Their actual parliament passed a ruling just a week before the conflict started for the localization of data. Now, for those that aren't aware, localization of data is about how and where data is stored and distributed. And Amazon basically made available 10 petabytes on their AWS cloud. Remember that, we're going to be coming back to AWS later on in the video. And basically stored all of this official data and allowed it to leave the country. Now, Google and Russia, on the other hand, are currently going through a very different kind of argument spat, if you will. There's lots of different websites around the world. We've got Russian ones as well as Western editorials talking about the blows the Russian government and Google are kind of firing at one another. So here's an example of Google being fined by Russia with regards to localization of data about where that data is being stored. And the reason this is kind of a pertinent point is because right now, Google is one of the few companies that still has a significant, Western companies that has a significant presence still in Russia. The reason being that obviously they are still, whether you like it or not, the world's biggest search engine, and the supplying of data, real information, and, you know, call it propaganda, call it whatever you want to call it, but making sure data is at least accessible and comparable worldwide. It's very hard, at least from an ethical stance, to move out. But of course, there are financial imperatives as well, given that a lot of the most popular world services are owned or at least supported by Google one way or another. And both Google has come very close, but not completely pulled out of Russia. And Russia has tried to force them out, but not quite push them out completely. And this is kind of a back and forth spat that's been going on for quite a long time. And now, with Google highlighting the amount of money they are not making in Russia, combined with Russia highlighting Google is intervening in public affairs, at least with regards to information and its citizens, I think this is something that's probably one of the most key Western players, at least as cloud and internet services in the world, that is still a Western company in Russia, that's going to be one of the brew storm areas, particularly when, you know, Apple and the iPhone and all those sort of services are slowly disappearing from the country, and a lot of Western cloud providers have already removed their services from availability or support in Russia, at least officially without proxy. I think this is going to be another big turning point in that data revolution or data war, whatever you want to call it. Finally, another story you may have heard about, but with an extra little twist on the end. It's over. Internet Explorer is now officially retired. We're not talking about Edge. We are talking about the original, the OG Internet Explorer has now been retired from support from Microsoft and their services, Microsoft Windows. Now, bear in mind, it doesn't remove it from any systems. If you have Internet Explorer, you're still going to be able to use it. It's just now official patches and updates for security or stability will cease. Now, why is this significant? Who the heck is still using Internet Explorer? Well, it turns out a hell of a lot of Japan. A lot of Japan, around 49% from a March 2022 survey held within the country, are still, at least in the corporate circle, still using it, either through an inability to know how to migrate over to Edge or other third-party browsers, or that a lot of the corporate terminals are locked to Internet Explorer. How often do you go to a public services area or like a hospital or a GP and they're running Windows XP or Windows 7? There's a reason for that, and that's because a lot of those services are hard locked, and it's not that straightforward to upgrade the entire system. And for Japan, the end of official support of Internet Explorer is actually going to be a bit of a big deal. And again, when they're talking about the number of people that have been moved over, at least globally, Internet Explorer is non-existent for the most part. The fact that it still has such an avid user base in Japan is kind of astounding. And the more we read into this, the more we find out that not only is it still in popular use there, but lots of people have been doing their own modifications, their own patches to add features and services that are in Microsoft Edge and putting them into Explorer. And again, it's just astounding, much like we watch people put in Doom on pregnancy tests, that people are still modding Internet Explorer and likely are still going to continue to even after it's officially retired. And finally, we return to the subject of Amazon there. And I don't know if any of you guys were using Amazon early this week, but there was a significant bit of downtime. Their website had a quite serious AWS failure. And if we look at the Express article here, which has a horrendous Norton advert on the side that I was unable to remove in the inspecting elements. It went down here in the UK around about Monday afternoon, evening, and even when it was back on, it was very spotty. Down Detector, when people were looking at more and more, reporting tremendous failures. Unfortunately, we've been unable to pull up the original historical record of it, but the spiking was in tens of thousands at one point globally, and at least 1,000 to 2,000 in the UK. Now, it didn't last for a tremendous amount of time. It looked like it was for about 50 minutes to 120 minutes. So, 2 hours in some places, but it really did hit the UK side of things quite badly. And whenever we see failures, particularly on like blob servers and AWS storage, what we find is a significant number of other websites go down at exactly the same time. Now, that isn't to say that this is, something that happened to Amazon due to the website being too busy, but it is something that we're kind of getting used to, and something that a lot of people take for granted when they're using online services, that we are still using remote service. Why am I bringing this all up? Well, Amazon did announce that the dates for Prime Day this year are now officially publicized. The 12th of July and the 13th of July. So if you've got that Prime subscription burning a little hole in your wallet there, then at least you'll be able to get some of those discounts there. So if ever there was going to be another time that we see the site absolutely hit the bricks, wouldn't be surprised then, because the sort of numbers they get during that period are pretty crazy town. And again, as always, as we do every year here on NAS Compares, we will be looking at the best data storage and network deals and publishing them on a little article there for you to check out. So again, do stay tuned for when that article and that video goes live, where we recommend deals that me and Eddie would personally buy, not just stuff that we go, oh, that's a deal, the end. So do check that out. But this has been Data News of the Week. We've got some fun stuff coming next week regarding hard drives. We were looking at WD Red this week, and we still have some more stuff to do, comparing some of the top tier drives out there in the market, as well as some stuff to do with surveillance. So do stay tuned for that. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.